In this movie, we're going to look at associations in more detail. In particular, we'll look at how you can show the direction in which the association name is to be read, the navigability and multiplicity of associations, and the role names on association ends. The name of an association can be shown as a label next to the line representing that association. The direction in which that name is to be read can be shown as a small arrow next to the label. So the highlighted association is read timed event belongs to schedule and not schedule belongs to timed event. An association end can have an open arrowhead on it. This shows that the association is navigable to the class at that end from the class at the opposite end. Arrowheads at both ends mean that the association is navigable in both directions. No arrowheads means the navigability is unspecified, but assumed to be from both ends. What this means in practice for the highlighted example is that when the system is implemented, objects of the class schedule will be able efficiently to access objects of the class timed event that are linked to them by links representing instances of the association. In an object-oriented language, this usually means holding a reference or references to the object or objects at the other end of the link. The multiplicity of the association end can be shown with a label. This defines the range of possible values that the objects participating in the links can have. In the example, a schedule must have at least one timed event that belongs to it, and each timed event must belong to one and only one schedule. One schedule could have 3 timed events belonging to it, the next could have 100 timed events belonging to it. On the association between schedule and device, the 0 ... at the schedule end of the association indicates that a device can have no schedules that apply to it, but could have any number. The default value, if there's no label, is 1. There are a number of possible formats for the multiplicity values. 1 means exactly 1. 0 ... means either 0 or 1, so is used for optional associations. 1 ... means 1 or more. 0 ... means 0 or more, so is used for optional associations where there could be many participating objects. Star on its own is the same as 0 ... A range can be shown by 2 numbers, the upper and lower bound separated by 2 dots. A list of possible values can be shown by numbers separated by commas, and a mixed list of values and ranges can be shown with the numbers and the ranges separated by commas. A role name is given to each end of the association. The default is the name of the class at that end, but with an initial lowercase letter. The modeler can change that default. If the multiplicity is greater than 1, by convention we make the name plural, as in the examples here for events and schedules. Let's add some additional information to the associations on our class diagram. Here's the class diagram with attributes and operations added to schedule. We'll start by adding the arrowheads for reading the direction of the association. To do this, we right-click on the label for the association name and select Direction from the context menu. Each association has a source end and a destination end, which depends on where the modeler started when dragging from one class to the other to create the association. It's a good idea to drag from the class that you want to read the association name from, so that will be the source. So here I select to destination, and the arrowhead appears alongside the label. If it's the wrong way round, I can change it to go to source, or I can switch directions by selecting the association itself, right-clicking and selecting Advanced Reverse Direction. I'm going to leave this directional arrow as it is. I'm just going to move these classes down slightly. If I move the class timed event so that its association with schedule is vertical, then the arrowhead changes so that it's pointing at the schedule class from below rather than from the side. I'll put it back where it was. In Enterprise Architect, you can either use Ctrl-Z or the undo icon in the toolbar to undo changes to the layout and graphical appearance. It doesn't undo changes to the properties of diagram elements, though. The arrowhead we've just added indicates the way that you read the association. The navigability of the association is a separate matter. This is shown by an open arrowhead at the end of the association. To add this, we can either go through the menus or we can use the Properties dialog for the association. To start with, let's make the association applies to bidirectionally navigable. I right-click on the association and then on Advanced in the menu. The association is currently unspecified, and I'm going to change it to bidirectional. You can see the arrowheads on the diagram. On the other association, I just want to change the navigability at one end, so I click on that end of the association and select Source Role. If it was the other end, it would say target role. This is the association properties dialog box. The general page is the one that we saw before when we added associations and gave them names. Here we are in the roles page. We can see the source and target properties side by side. The name of the class is shown here at the top, so we can check that we're at the correct end of the association. In the navigability drop-down for the source role, I'll change unspecified to navigable. Save the change. You can see that the arrowhead has been added at one end. Multiplicity is similar in that we can add the labels through the menus or through the same properties dialog. I'm going to use the properties dialog here. I select the timed event end of the belongs to association and select source role again. You can see there's a multiplicity drop-down, and I'll select the multiplicity 1 ... star from the available options. The label appears next to the end of the association. I can also do this on the other association. I can select the association, right-click and select Properties, and then go to the Roles page. You can see the name of the class device at the top, so I know which is the device end of the association. In the combo box, I select 1. If I want to set a specific value here, for example, if each schedule applies to between 2 and 7 devices, I can just edit the value rather than using the drop-down. However, here I want it to be 1, so I'll use the values from the drop-down list. At the other end, I set the multiplicity to 0 ... star. I want to make my diagram consistent. In a previous exercise, we changed the multiplicity of the events attributes of schedule to 0 ... 30. So I'm going to change that back to 1 ... star to make it consistent with the association. I set the lower bound to 1 and the upper bound to the star. Finally, we can add role names to the ends of the associations through the same dialog box. I'm going to add role names to the applies to association. In the top field, under where it says device, I can set the name of the role to device. I could type that in, but this is a combo box, and if I click on the arrow to open the drop-down list, you can see that device is in the list of attributes of schedule, and I can select it and use it as the name for this association role. If I switch to the source role end, I want to set the name of the schedule role to schedules. This doesn't exist in the drop-down list because there isn't a schedules, or in fact any attribute, defined for the device class. So I type in schedules. I use a plural noun because this role represents a multiplicity greater than 1. Note that the visibility of these association roles defaults here to public. I'll change the visibility of both ends of this association to private by selecting private from the drop-down lists and saving the changes. To make the diagram consistent, I'm also going to add an attribute to device called schedules of type schedule to reflect the association. I'll set the multiplicity of the attribute to 0 ... star to be consistent with the association. I'll just tidy up the diagram and position it so that the changes are visible. So, in this movie we've looked at associations in more detail and seen how to set the direction indicator on an association label, the navigability and the multiplicity, and how to give an association role a name.